Tanks are evaluated according to the FF criteria. A. Raw toughness/damage. Self-explanatory. B. Utility. How useful is it by itself without other heroes bossing it? C. Variety of use. Besides tanking, does it do other stuff like heal? It's related to utility. Hey guys. Nizzy here. Before we continue, please consider clicking that like and sub button and all that YouTube jazz. Edgar, your shield tank. He can be powerful but only if shielded. ULT is not bad and produces an effect that scales with no of enemies hit. An HP captain's aura that works everywhere. Tier B not because he is weak, but besides in situations where he can maintain a shield, there are just so many other tanks that can do what he does better. Fritz, a tank that heals itself and remove debuffs. Healing and toughness scales with debuffs absorbed. Can you ask for anything more? Useful in many situations. Fairly tough. As for sure, we usually don't look at ice roster for tanks, except maybe for Drizzt, but this tank may change all that. He has Taunt, which is the most appropriate ability of Tank's Imho. Also inflicts debuffs and gains shield on same ability that deals damage that scales of HP. Too bad his abilities are rarely useful in bosses though, so Loris gets A instead of S. Another ice roster tank. Forbert has very high AoE damage that stuns. His battle skill is also high damage with control mechanisms. He reduces damage taken if enemy is debuffed. Plus he has HP captain's aura that works everywhere. A. Dane, I call him a group tank. He's a good tank to take care of groups and good in tight formations as can be seen from his ultimate. Has a nice passive but it's only usable once at start of battle. Has DF aura but only usable in dungeons. Great in dungeons but B overall. Radiant roster redeems itself with Barrack. For me the toughest rare solo tank in the game. He is like a rare Horus. His ULT makes himself stronger. His battle skill inflicts a debuff and scales off both ATK and DF. As if that wasn't enough, his passive reduces damage even further plus an HP captain's aura though only in dungeons. But that is just an extra solid S. Lightning is usually a good roster, but not for tanks at least in its rare heroes. Salian is an example of a tank that is hard to put a good use for. In fairness, she has a high damage AoE ultimate. Can also dispel one debuff from self and get shield in the process. Has a powerful but one-time use passive. Has a high HP aura but only in dungeons. A. Alton is a poison tank that's good against single targets. His ULT toughens him up and inflicts ATK debuff. Can dispel debuff to self and one other ally. Also has passive that helps allies. Good group tank. A. Fire is known mostly for its offensive roster, but Yamura goes against that stereotype. Has the highest ULT damage in the game that is AoE that also debuffs. Has a good def buff that can be used frequently. Her passive reduces damage taken from same attacker. These are awesome abilities. Plus a def aura that works everywhere. A for now but may change in the future. Livia is another fire tank that is great on certain situations. Her ULT does low damage, but is the only rare hero in the game that dispels one buff and deals buff prohibition in the process. Her battle skill is almost as strong as her ULT Imho. Its AoE and also gives her def buff. Her passive is a real letdown, a shield that only happens at the start. She seems to be a specialist tank. Sadly. And check out my other vids.